Billionaire sees young Maid, crying on the phone. The next morning, her life is unrecognizable. Late one evening, billionaire Nicholas Carmichael strode through the marble corridors of his London estate, wrestling with the ghosts of his own past. On his way to the lavish dining hall, he heard muffled sobs. Following the sound, he found the newest maid, Elena Marquez, huddled in a dim corner, clutching her phone as tears slid down her cheeks. In that heartbreaking moment, Nicholas recognized a pain far deeper than any minor inconvenience. Compassion stirred within him, and unbeknownst to Elena, her life was about to take a drastic turn. Little did they both know this twist of fate would send shockwaves through every aspect of their lives. Nicholas Carmichael was one of the wealthiest men in the world, rivaling magnates like Bernard Arnault and Elon Musk for global influence. But rather than building his fortune on technology or retail, Nicholas had made his billions through a vast real estate empire that stretched from the glittering skyscrapers of Hong Kong to the sun-soaked coasts of Greece. Son of the late Gregory Carmichael, a revered real estate mogul, Nicholas had inherited more than just his father's fortune. He had also inherited an unrelenting work ethic that refused to let him rest. He spent his days negotiating deals in polished boardrooms, his nights attending exclusive charity galas alongside dignitaries and celebrities. On the rare occasions he allowed himself to pause, Nicholas found loneliness shadowing his every step. After a tumultuous past relationship that ended in a high-profile divorce splashed across tabloids, he had steeled himself against vulnerability. His pristine Mayfair mansion, sprawling, pristine and echoing with emptiness, felt more like a fortress to keep the world out than a home. The staff within its walls lived by strict protocols, ensuring his privacy and comfort above all else. While people perceived him as perpetually confident and unstoppable behind closed doors, Nicholas wrestled with doubt. He questioned whether love and sincerity still existed in a world that constantly sought his money and influence. The facade of the charismatic mogul was carefully constructed, revealing little of the yearning beneath. He had learned to trust few suspecting ulterior motives at every turn. Everyone, friends, colleagues, lovers, seemed to want a piece of his power. That particular evening, though, something shifted. He had concluded a stressful day analyzing a partnership proposal involving Bill Gates' philanthropic fund. As midnight neared, he decided to walk the halls to clear his mind. His footsteps echoed across polished marble floors, reverberating through lofty ceilings. Past gilded portraits and antique vases, he proceeded until he heard the unmistakable sound of stifled tears. For a moment he wanted to ignore it. Staff matters were typically delegated to the head housekeeper or the estate manager. But something in that quiet sob drew him closer. Elena Marquez had started working in Nicholas's London estate only a few months prior. Young and timid, she had come from a small town near Seville, Spain, seeking work that would allow her to support her family back home. She impressed the staff supervisor with her diligence and attention to detail, quickly earning a steady position. Yet inside, Elena felt like she was constantly balancing on a razor's edge. Her father was chronically ill, her younger brother still in school, and bills piled up each month. She had no safety net, only the determination to keep them all afloat. That night, in the dim corridor leading to the kitchen, Eleanor had made a phone call to her mother. The conversation was laced with panic. Her father's health had deteriorated, and the doctors demanded an urgent procedure that cost far beyond anything the family could afford. Elena had quietly saved money for months, but it wasn't enough to cover the sudden urgency of the hospital fees. Her mother's voice had trembled, worried that her husband might not survive if they delayed treatment. Despair overcame Elena, who blamed herself for not doing more. She crumpled against the wall, tears falling onto the phone, still in her grasp. Working in the grandiose estate, where a single dinner party's flower arrangement might cost more than her entire salary for the year, felt jarringly unfair. She had seen extravagance beyond imagination. Custom gold fixtures in the bathrooms, imported marble counters from Italy, even rumored shipments of antique art for the library. There was a significant gap between the lavish world she cleaned each day and the painful reality of her parents' struggles. Elena harbored no resentment toward Nicholas Carmichael personally. She barely knew him. She was one of dozens of maids and butlers who quietly ensured the estate glistened. Yet the disparity overwhelmed her. Her sobs came in quiet spurts, each tear testament to the heavy burden that weighed on her shoulders. She tried to stifle them, fearful that someone might overhear. If the estate manager discovered her crying on the job, she worried she could lose her position. Yet her heartbreak was too powerful to contain. So she wept softly in the shadows, entirely unaware that the estate's owner, Nicholas Carmichael himself, was watching from just around the corner. Nicholas hesitated. Social norms and professional boundaries dictated that he should walk away. Let the head housekeeper handle personal issues of the staff. But something about the rawness of Eleanor's sorrow resonated with him. It reminded him of nights long ago when he too felt hopeless. Stepping forward, he cleared his throat to avoid startling her. Elena jumped quickly, trying to wipe her tears and steady her trembling hands. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Carmichael," she stammered, bowing her head. "I was just—" She couldn't even finish the sentence, for the wave of grief threatened to break her all over again. Nicholas offered her a handkerchief monogrammed with the Carmichael crest in elegant gold thread. He asked quietly, "Is everything all right?" It was a ridiculous question, given the circumstances. No one sobbed like that if everything was fine. Elena tried to muster an explanation, but her words caught in her throat. Embarrassment battled with desperation in her eyes, which shone with tears. She was torn between wanting to hide her personal tragedies and hoping that someone, a man of Nicholas's influence, could help. Silently, Nicholas stood, uncertain how to proceed. He was used to solving problems with money, forging new business expansions, or smoothing over disputes with a barrage of legal resources. But a crying maid was different. He gently placed a hand on her shoulder and said, "You don't have to tell me if you don't want to, but if I can help in some way, let me know." Then, before Elena could find the words, he withdrew, leaving her the handkerchief. Perhaps that small courtesy would be more meaningful than he realized. When Elena awoke, she felt a knot of apprehension in her stomach. She recalled the humiliating moment when her boss, the estate's billionaire owner, had seen her break down. She was certain that she'd be reprimanded, or even let go. Nonetheless, she forced herself up and donned her crisp uniform, preparing for the day. If she lost her job, her father's chance at critical treatment would slip away. She had no choice but to face the music. However, that morning's routine proved anything but typical. The moment Elena entered the manor's staff quarters, the estate manager summoned her to the main office, a small but opulent room used to handle estate staffing issues. Anxiety pounded in her chest. To her shock, she found Nicholas Carmichael himself waiting by the desk, along with the manager. Nicholas gestured for her to sit. She tentatively complied, her heart hammering. Nicholas's voice was calm, yet it carried a note of urgency. He explained that he'd overheard fragments of her phone call. He was aware her father's life was in jeopardy without immediate care. Her situation had touched him deeply. If she agreed, he wanted to pay for the procedure and any related medical fees. Stunned, Elena stared at him, tears welling in her eyes again, this time from incredulity rather than despair. "I can't accept that," she whispered, her voice barely audible. She felt unworthy, but Nicholas shook his head. He insisted that he wanted to help, that no one should lose a parent because of money. The manager watched the exchange in silent awe. Never had the staff witnessed Nicholas so openly compassionate, wiping her tears. Elena finally nodded, unable to form the words to express her gratitude. That was how her life changed in a single morning. One act of kindness had opened a new chapter more extraordinary than she could have ever imagined. Over the days that followed, Nicholas arranged for Elena's father to be transferred to a top hospital in Barcelona for specialized treatment. He paid all expenses from the surgeries to the aftercare, ensuring the man got the best medical attention money could buy. Elena found herself in a whirlwind of paperwork and phone calls each day, bringing news of steady improvement in her father's condition. The once distant and aloof billionaire now seemed like a guardian angel, someone who saw suffering and decided to mend it. With her father out of immediate danger, Elena began to breathe again. It was only then that Nicholas, curious by nature, probed a bit into her life story. In passing, he'd ask gentle questions about her mother, her brother, her aspirations. Initially, Elena offered curt, polite replies, wary of oversharing. But there was a genuine warmth in Nicholas's eyes, a sincerity she hadn't experienced from wealthy employers before. Gradually, her guard came down. She recounted her upbringing in the Andalusian countryside, how her parents had worked tirelessly in the fields until her father's failing health forced him to stop. She talked about skipping meals during her childhood, so her younger brother Raphael could eat enough to stay strong for school. She spoke of her desperate search for stable work, eventually landing the maid job in London through a distant cousin. Each revelation was tinged with a calm resignation that this was simply life, one full of trials. Nicholas listened intently, finding himself surprisingly moved. He realized that Elena was more than just a timid maid. She had a brave spirit forged by adversity. She had fought fiercely for her family, crossing borders and social divides to earn a living. Though he had lived a life of luxury, Nicholas recognized the same determined spark in Elena that once propelled him to build his empire after his father's passing. In her story, he saw a living testament to resilience. And perhaps for the first time in years, he felt the stirrings of admiration. Nicholas could not fully extend compassion to another without confronting his own memories. As he spent more time with Eleanor, inviting her to oversee certain tasks closer to his study, occasionally pausing to check on her well-being, he recalled moments from his youth when life was not all silver spoons and trust funds. The Carmichael wealth had always been immense, but it came with its fair share of responsibility and heartbreak. He vividly remembered the day the tabloids broke the news of his parents' messy separation, how his mother left and never returned. And he remembered the turmoil he felt when he had to bury his father, stepping into colossal shoes he was never fully prepared to fill. Lately, his regrets centered around the fiasco with his ex-wife Marissa Hawthorne, a socialite who seemed enamored more by his money than by the man he was. Their divorce years ago had been brutal and public, played out in the media. He hadn't dared open his heart since. The experience taught him that kindness was easily exploited in a world that prized wealth above genuine connection. Yet watching Elena's sincerity gave him cause to reconsider the possibility that not everyone was driven by greed. She reminded him of a simpler form of existence, one where love mattered more than bank balances. Late one evening, as Nicholas retreated to his study, he pulled out an old photo of his father, Gregory Carmichael, standing in front of the first building the family purchased in downtown London. The elder Carmichael's posture radiated pride and humility. Nicholas thought about how his father had always insisted on giving back donating sums to charities and supporting scholarships for underprivileged youth. Regret and guilt clashed in Nicholas's heart. In his relentless pursuit of success, he had lost that philanthropic spirit. Perhaps helping Elena was a way to rekindle what he once admired in his father. Within Nicholas grew a desire to do more than pay hospital bills. He felt pulled to lift Elena from her endless cycle of hardship, to offer her opportunities she could never have imagined. And though he didn't fully understand why, it wasn't merely charity. He sensed a profound connection, forming an unspoken bond that made her tragedies feel personal to him, as if her well-being reflected something he yearned for in himself. After Elena's father was stabilized, Nicholas surprised her by inviting her to attend a small gathering he was hosting for a handful of real estate partners. The idea baffled Elena. She was just a maid. How could she possibly belong in a reception filled with CEOs and wealthy investors? But Nicholas insisted. He told her he respected her courage and he believed she might enjoy meeting new people and witnessing a different side of London's high society. Nervous and shy, Eleanor arrived at the grand salon, wearing a simple black dress that one of the older housekeepers had helped her purchase earlier that day. She smoothed it over her hips, feeling awkward among guests who swirled around in designer gowns and gleaming cufflinks. Nonetheless, Nicholas, dressed in a tailored midnight blue suit, greeted her warmly. He introduced her to some of his associates, as if she were an esteemed guest rather than the staff. Elena found herself engaged in cautious conversation with a few gracious attendees, men and women, who, upon seeing Nicholas's interest in her, treated her politely. Yet Elena couldn't shake the sense that she was an outsider. She recognized the glances, some curious, some condescending. But amid the swirl of chatter and champagne, Nicholas remained by her side. More than once, he gently steered the conversation toward shared topics like traveling through Spain or local cultural customs. Moments like these made Elena realize how profoundly her life had already changed. Only weeks ago, she'd been scrubbing floors at dawn. Now she was sipping fine wine with millionaires. As the evening wore on, Nicholas found himself laughing genuinely at Elena's stories. There was a spark in her eyes when she talked about her home, the quiet streets, the festivals, the Andalusian sunsets. Her perspective on life, her humility and her earnestness drew him in like a magnet. Never before had Nicholas connected so swiftly with someone he'd only just come to know. He couldn't quite put his finger on it, but a sense of warmth spread through him, making him feel more alive than he had in years. Their deepening relationship did not go unnoticed. Among the estate staff, whispers began circulating. Some rumored that Elena was using Nicholas's sympathy to ascend beyond her station. Others speculated that Nicholas had found himself a new romantic interest. The environment at the estate grew rife with gossip. The head housekeeper, Ms. Hopkins, staunchly disapproved of any blurring between employer and employee. She had managed the household for decades under strict protocols, and this budding camaraderie between Nicholas and Elena rattled her sense of decorum. Meanwhile, in Nicholas's professional circles, eyebrows were also raised. His top financial advisor, Martin Cleary, quietly expressed concern about how Nicholas's unusual generosity might be interpreted by investors and board members. Even the press caught a whiff of an unknown woman close to Nicholas Carmichael paparazzi, snapped a blurry photo of him, chatting with a young brunette on the steps of a private clinic. Rumors flew that Nicholas had a mystery girlfriend. The tabloids circled like vultures, hungry for another sensational story. Eleanor, for her part, had no idea of the social firestorm brewing around her. She was simply grateful that her father was improving. Still, she sensed tension within the staff. People who once greeted her politely now offered half-hearted nods, if at all. She overheard snide remarks about how she must be special, since she no longer performed certain menial tasks. The negativity cut her deeply, igniting old insecurities. She felt like a fraud wearing borrowed dresses and attending fancy events. Yet the greatest complication was one neither of them foresaw: the reappearance of Nicholas's ex-wife, Marissa Hawthorne. Spotting the rumors in the tabloids, she saw an opportunity. She reached out, claiming she wanted to reconcile, or at the very least, catch up. In reality, she scented an opening to exploit Nicholas's budding vulnerability. Marissa believed that if Nicholas had found a new interest, she should be the one reaping the benefits of his renewed softness. After all, she thought she had once been Mrs. Carmichael, who better to stand at Nicholas's side. A few days later, Nicholas invited Elena for a quiet lunch in one of the estate's smaller dining rooms. When she arrived, she found a modest spread laid out: fresh bread, a creamy soup, a simple pasta dish. He hoped to provide some respite from the estate's swirling tensions. Over lunch, he confided that the tabloids had been tailing him more aggressively since rumors of his mystery companion emerged. Elena blushed, apologizing profusely. "I never wanted to cause you trouble," she said, gripping the edge of the linen tablecloth. Nicholas reassured her that it wasn't her fault. He had chosen to help her, and he wouldn't let scandalmongers tarnish that. Then he floated a proposal that stopped her breath. He wanted to sponsor her education. He had discovered through conversation that Elena's dream had always been to become a nurse, a profession that would allow her to help others as she'd always yearned to. Eleanor stared at him, stunned. She had no illusions about how expensive and lengthy nursing programs could be, particularly for an international student in the United Kingdom. Nicholas admitted he had already made preliminary inquiries. A well-regarded nursing school near King's College London might accept Elena if she passed the entrance requirements. He believed Elena had the compassion and drive to succeed in healthcare. He would pay her tuition and living expenses, and she could continue working part-time at the estate or any other arrangement she found comfortable. Overwhelmed, Elena tried to dissuade him, insisting it was too much, that he'd already done so much for her family. But Nicholas leaned forward, sincerity etched on his face. "Elena, I've had every opportunity in life handed to. I want you to have a chance at your dreams. You're smart. You deserve to do what you love." Tears welled in her eyes. She nodded slowly, hardly able to believe the miraculous turn her life had taken. Destiny had waltzed her into a world of unimaginable possibilities, and she felt both grateful and terrified at the prospect of stepping into it. No sooner did Elena accept Nicholas's generous offer than Marissa made her re-entrance with dramatic flair. She called Nicholas at odd hours, claiming she wanted closure. She apologized for the way their marriage had fallen apart. She even dropped by the estate unannounced, under the guise of returning some old keepsakes, knowing full well paparazzi might catch her at the gate. Nicholas remained polite, but non-committal. He had long since closed that chapter of his life. Still, there was no denying Marissa's skill in causing turmoil wherever she went. One afternoon, Marissa cornered Eleanor in the corridor near Nicholas's personal study. Her eyes raked over Elena's modest attire, brimming with a mix of condescension and curiosity. "Oh, you must be Elena," she crooned, voice dripping with false sweetness. "I've heard so much about Nicholas's charitable project." The word stung like a slap. Elena forced a polite smile stating she needed to return to work. But Marissa, ever relentless, pressed on. "Just be careful, dear. Nicholas can grow bored quickly when he's done playing savior." The confrontation left Elena shaken. She wondered if Nicholas's generosity would wane over time. Was Marissa right? Could it be that Eleanor was merely a new toy for a bored billionaire? The anxiety weighed on her. She felt undeserving, and Marissa's insinuations cut to the heart of her insecurities. After all, if the staff believed Elena was using Nicholas, what if the truth was that she indeed had no right to stand in a place among the privileged? Later that evening, Nicholas found Elena pacing in the garden, tears shining in her eyes. When he asked her what was wrong, she spilled out her doubts, referencing Marissa's remarks. Nicholas's expression hardened. He assured Elena that his intentions were genuine. He told her he had never grown tired of helping those in need, especially someone who was honest and kind. Drawing her into a quiet, comforting embrace under the moonlit sky, Nicholas reaffirmed that she wasn't just a passing fancy. In that moment, Eleanor felt safe. But she also sensed that Marissa's meddling was only just beginning. Over the following weeks, Marissa orchestrated a series of chance encounters, often timed to coincide with paparazzi presence. She'd appear at restaurants Nicholas frequented, or linger outside the estate gates in a chauffeur-driven car. The tabloids jumped at the drama Nicholas Carmichael, torn between ex-wife and mystery woman, read one headline. Another insinuated that the billionaire was secretly fathering a child with a woman from Spain. Nicholas tried to quash the rumors, but every denial only seemed to fuel media speculation. During one particularly tense dinner at a high-end bistro, Marissa cornered Nicholas, warning him that his new fling was tarnishing his reputation. He responded coolly that he had no interest in hearing her opinion on his personal life. However, Marissa slyly produced old photos moments from their married days and threatened to leak them to the press with twisted narratives if Nicholas didn't at least consider making amends. It was a veiled attempt at blackmail, though Marissa disguised it as a plea for closure. This was the last straw for Nicholas. Any lingering sympathy he might have had for Marissa evaporated in that instant. He instructed his legal team to review any potential defamation or breach of privacy claims should she attempt to sell these stories or pictures to tabloids. He also warned security at the estate to deny her entry. Yet Marissa knew how to navigate high society, and she counted on the press's penchant for sensational headlines. She believed a well-placed rumor could cause more damage than any legal threat. Word of this conflict reached Elena. Concerned for Nicholas's well-being, after all, it was because of her that Marissa had grown so vindictive. Elena approached him, offering to leave if it meant peace for him. Nicholas gazed at her incredulously. "You're not a burden. Don't ever think that. Marissa's actions are her own doing. I won't let her push you away." Despite his reassurance, Elena couldn't shake the guilt. She knew all too well how quickly a good thing could unravel under relentless outside pressure. While the household staff gossiped and Marissa's drama churned in the background, an unexpected ally emerged for Elena. Ms. Hopkins, the strict head housekeeper. Initially wary of Elena's close relationship with Nicholas, Hopkins had maintained a detached professionalism. But over time, she noticed Elena's consistent kindness, her refusal to leverage special treatment, and her unwavering diligence. When Elena wasn't studying for her nursing entrance exams, she still insisted on doing her share of chores, whether it was assisting in the kitchen or tidying the living quarters. One afternoon, Ms. Hopkins found Elena poring over a thick anatomy textbook in the staff lounge, eyes filled with both determination and anxiety. The older woman cleared her throat awkwardly. I hear you've done well on your preliminary tests, she said hesitantly. Elena thanked her, modest as ever. In that moment, Miss Hopkins recognized a spark of sincerity, too rare in the circles they inhabited. She realized that Elena genuinely wanted to better herself, not just for personal gain, but to help others. Their conversation ended with Miss Hopkins quietly offering to tutor Elena in English medical terminology, a subject she herself had studied years prior when caring for a sick relative. The new mentorship surprised Elena, who had never expected kindness from someone so stoic. But Miss Hopkins proved remarkably dedicated, quizzing Elena daily with flashcards and guiding her through advanced vocabulary. Their sessions forged an unexpected bond, one that bridged age and class differences. The staff looked on with curiosity. If Miss Hopkins was warming to Elena, maybe the rumors about her manipulative intentions were unfounded. Slowly, the estate's atmosphere softened toward Elena. Encouraged by this support, Elena pushed harder in her studies. She often fell asleep past midnight over dog-eared textbooks. Nicholas checked in regularly, ensuring she had everything she needed from application fees to specialized tutoring. This fervent pursuit of her dreams became Elena's anchor amidst the swirling rumors and media chaos. Focused on her goal, she placed her trust in Nicholas's promises and worked tirelessly toward building a future where she was no longer reliant on the charity of others. Tensions reached a boiling point when Marissa announced an extravagant charity event, a ploy to capture the philanthropic high ground. She booked the luxurious Grosvenor Ballroom in central London, inviting top-tier socialites, media figures, and old acquaintances of Nicholas. The official reason was to raise funds for a children's hospital. Unofficially, it was a vehicle for Marissa to reassert her relevance and, if possible, overshadow Elena. Marissa extended an invitation to Nicholas, who was a known patron of many charities. With measured resolve, he decided to attend, keenly aware it might be a trap, but refusing to let Marissa's manipulations keep him in hiding. He asked Elena if she would accompany him. After all, it was a public event. Conflicted Elena initially declined. She feared making a spectacle of herself, but Nicholas insisted, wanting her by his side, not as a prop, but as his companion. Word spread quickly among the staff that Nicholas intended to bring Elena to a highly public high society gala. Some predicted it would be a disaster, that the paparazzi would tear Elena apart. Others believed it was a bold declaration. Nicholas was openly choosing Elena over Marissa's theatrics. Elena wrestled with anxiety. Every time she pictured stepping onto a red carpet with cameras flashing, she felt queasy. But a part of her yearned to stand beside Nicholas with dignity. She was tired of cowering in the shadows because of someone else's malicious agenda. Ultimately, Elena summoned the courage to accept. Miss Hopkins even helped her select a gown, a deep emerald creation that complemented her dark hair. Nicholas arranged for a stylist to handle her hair and makeup, ensuring she felt confident under the bright lights. On the night of the event, as Elena slipped into the waiting limousine beside Nicholas, she grasped his hand. Underneath the polished veneer of their clothes and titles, they shared a simple truth. They were two people forging a path through a sea of doubt. The ballroom shimmered with chandeliers and crystal centerpieces. London's elite mingled with political figures and celebrities. Marissa greeted guests at the door with a blinding smile, her eyes scanning for Nicholas's arrival. When the paparazzi outside began snapping furiously, she knew he had come. Taking a steadying breath, Marissa prepared her stage performance. Nicholas and Elena entered arm in arm. Cameras flashed, capturing Elena's poised figure in the emerald gown. Journalists shouted questions, but Nicholas politely declined to comment. Inside the crowd parted like the Red Sea heads, turning to see the reclusive billionaire with his enchanting companion. Some guests offered warm smiles, while others peered curiously. Marissa herself strolled up with an exaggerated air of graciousness. "Nicholas, I'm so glad you came," she cooed, ignoring Elena altogether. Throughout the night, Elena felt waves of attention, some genuine curiosity, others outright scrutiny. She persevered with quiet dignity, responding politely when approached. Nicholas, ever attentive, rarely left her side. Between short speeches and charitable pledges, the tension between Marissa and Elena simmered under the polished surface. Marissa made pointed remarks about how she and Nicholas used to share so many philanthropic passions, her voice dripping with insinuation that Elena could never understand that part of his life. Then at the peak of the evening, Marissa took the stage to deliver a speech about the Children's Hospital. She thanked everyone for their contributions, especially Nicholas Carmichael, who once taught me the importance of giving back. Her remarks drew polite applause until she pivoted to a personal note. "I want everyone here to know that hearts can heal. Nicholas and I have had our share of ups and downs, but I believe true love never dies." The room went silent, awaiting Nicholas's response. Nicholas stood, all eyes on him. He approached the stage, the microphone capturing the quiet intensity in his voice. With practiced composure, he acknowledged Marissa's nod to their past, then added, "True love is about honesty, respect, and genuine empathy. It's about wanting the best for someone without manipulation." A ripple of murmurs spread through the guests. Everyone grasped the underlying message aimed squarely at Marissa. Marissa's smile tensed. She tried to maintain her poise, but jealousy and anger flared in her eyes. Rather than concede, she pressed, "And yet some in our community have begun to question the nature of your new project." Her gaze flicked to Eleanor, who stood near the edge of the stage, cheeks burning. "We can only hope it's all in the spirit of altruism, and not a fleeting indulgence." Shocked gasps rippled through the audience. Even those unacquainted with Elena could sense the venom behind Marissa's words. Elena felt a wave of humiliation crash over her. She considered fleeing, but Nicholas intervened. He asked Elena to join him at the microphone. Taking her trembling hand, he faced the crowd. Quietly, he introduced Elena Marquez, explaining her background and dream of becoming a nurse. He expressed his pride in her dedication, her resilience. Then he made a pointed statement. "I won't let cynicism or envy tarnish acts of kindness. Elena isn't a project. She's a talented, hard-working individual, someone I deeply respect." Applause erupted from various corners of the ballroom. Some were friends of Nicholas, who admired his bold stance. Others were moved by his heartfelt speech. Stunned Marissa could only plaster a taut smile on her lips. As Nicholas escorted Elena off the stage, the paparazzi cameras flashed relentlessly. The night had taken an unexpected turn, a public declaration that shifted the narrative away from salacious rumors toward something more genuine. But for Marissa, it was a humiliating defeat, one she would not soon forget. The days following the charity event were a flurry of media coverage. To Nicholas's relief, many outlets praised his passionate defense of Elena's character. Some tabloids still tried to spin salacious angles, but a wave of positive opinion emerged, particularly when a handful of journalists delved deeper into Elena's story, uncovering the plight of her father and her hopes of becoming a nurse. Public sentiment began to favor the idea that Nicholas was simply helping a deserving young woman pursue her aspirations, The change in public opinion only intensified Marissa's resentment. Yet with her plan backfiring spectacularly, she retreated from the limelight, at least temporarily. Nicholas's legal team also sent a stern notice warning against any further defamation attempts. For the moment, Marissa faded into the background, plotting her next move, or possibly licking her wounds. Within the estate, a newfound respect enveloped Elena. Staff who once snubbed her began to apologize, or at least behave more warmly. Some quietly admitted to her that they found her bravery admirable. Ms. Hopkins proudly reported that Eleanor had passed her nursing school entrance exams with promising marks. Meanwhile, Nicholas continued to support Eleanor's dream, even helping her secure a rigorous language course to polish her academic English. Through it all, an unspoken bond solidified between Nicholas and Eleanor. They grew comfortable in each other's presence, sharing more personal details, favorite books, childhood memories, secret fears. At night, Nicholas would watch Elena curl up on a sofa in the reading room, studying for her classes, and feel a deep contentment he hadn't felt in a very long time. Her life might have changed dramatically, but so had his. No longer was he the distant billionaire hiding behind gilded walls. Through Elena's eyes, he rediscovered empathy and purpose. By the time Elena's father was healthy enough to travel, nearly 6 months had passed since Nicholas first overheard her crying on the phone. Her father, Miguel Marquez, arrived in London accompanied by Elena's mother, Lucia. Nicholas had arranged first-class tickets, ensuring their journey was comfortable. Meeting them at the airport, Elena wept with joy as she embraced her parents. For so long she had shouldered her burdens alone. Now her father stood before her, looking thinner, but alive and grateful. Nicholas offered them accommodations in a nearby luxury apartment he typically used for visiting business associates. Miguel protested the extravagance, feeling uneasy about depending on a stranger's wealth. But after witnessing his daughter's evident bond with Nicholas, he relented. Over the next few days, Nicholas invited them to the estate for dinner. Lucia fussed over Nicholas's generosity, offering to cook him traditional Spanish dishes. He laughed, appreciative of the warmth that reminded him of a true family home, something he had missed for years. Over the dinner table, conversation flowed in a mix of Spanish and English. Nicholas listened intently as Lucia recounted Elena's childhood. Miguel spoke quietly about how he once dreamed of sending Elena to university, but never could afford it. They expressed their thanks, tears shimmering in their eyes. Nicholas was taken aback by their humility. He responded by explaining that he saw genuine potential in Elena. He didn't want her talents overshadowed by circumstance. In the midst of laughter and heartfelt gratitude, Nicholas realized that the presence of Elena's family filled a void in his colossal estate. He caught himself imagining what it would be like to have them around more permanently. This realization startled him. He'd never considered marriage or family since his disastrous relationship with Marissa. But seeing Elena's mother and father beam with pride at their daughter's achievements reminded Nicholas that love in its simplest form was worth risking everything for. As Elena began her nursing studies, juggling part-time work at the estate, she was confronted with an intense workload. The coursework demanded rigorous hours, mastering medical concepts, labs, and clinical simulations. Exhaustion haunted her, but so did unwavering determination. She rose before dawn to review notes, then spent afternoons cleaning or managing tasks around the mansion. Nicholas, concerned for her well-being, encouraged her to reduce her workload. He offered to cover her living expenses fully. Yet Eleanor remained firm in her desire to earn at least part of her keep. She was grateful but not complacent. Meanwhile, Nicholas faced his own challenges. A proposed real estate mega deal in Asia had come under scrutiny from environmental groups, threatening to stall the project. The ensuing legal battles and public relations fiascos consumed his days. Overnight, he traveled from London to Hong Kong and back, missing meals and sleeping on planes. During these tumultuous weeks, seeing Elena's light on in the study at midnight comforted him. He sometimes found her dozing off over a textbook and would gently drape a blanket over her shoulders before returning to his own desk. Their shared exhaustion forged a sense of camaraderie. They were two relentless souls, chasing success in different spheres, he with his sprawling empire, she with her fledgling medical career. Late-night cups of tea in the estate's grand kitchen became their quiet respite, a moment to exchange supportive smiles or vent about the day's frustrations. In those moments, their worlds merged briefly, forming a bubble of solace amid the relentless demands of life. But the serenity was short-lived. As Elena approached her first major set of exams, she discovered that her father's condition required further observation, possibly another procedure. This time, the cost wasn't astronomical. Nicholas had established a healthcare fund for her parents, but it still weighed heavily on Elena. She worried that her father's health would decline while she was buried in her studies. Nicholas reassured her that doctors were on standby, but fear gnawed at her heart. She dreaded losing her father, just when she had finally reclaimed hope. The day of Elena's critical nursing exam dawned cold and grey. Rain pelted the London streets, turning them slick and reflective. Elena left the estate at daybreak, her nerves frayed. She had studied obsessively, but anxiety crept in. What if she failed? What if she disappointed Nicholas, who had invested so much in her? And what of her father's latest medical scare, mid-exam? Her phone buzzed repeatedly, though she'd turned it to silent. The restless energy unsettled her. An hour later, she emerged from the exam hall, soaked by the downpour, and saw multiple missed calls from a number she recognized as the Barcelona hospital. Her heartbeat thundered. She called back, bracing for the worst. The physician's voice was calm but urgent. Her father needed a minor secondary procedure. It wasn't life-threatening, but time was of the essence. Panic seized Eleanor. She felt torn between celebrating the completion of her exam and racing to her father's side. Before she could decide, Nicholas's call came through. He spoke reassuringly. "I've already chartered a flight. A car will be waiting outside your campus in 30 minutes. Go to him." Overwhelmed by relief, Elena thanked him profusely, tears mixing with raindrops on her cheeks. True to his word, a sleek black sedan arrived to whisk her to the airport. Within hours, she was on a private jet, her textbooks tossed into a bag. She realized she was living a reality that only months ago would have been inconceivable. Landing in Spain. Elena rushed straight to the hospital. Her father greeted her with a weak smile, comforting her more than she did him. Over the next few days, the surgery went smoothly. While her father recovered, Eleanor remained at his bedside, relieved to see him stabilizing again. Whenever stress overwhelmed her, she thought of how Nicholas had mobilized everything for her. His unwavering support was as baffling as it was heartwarming. A part of her wondered if she was falling in love with him, and whether such feelings could ever truly be reciprocated, given their vastly different worlds. Once her father was stable, Elena returned to London. Nicholas, who had flown in from Hong Kong the night before, greeted her at the estate. In the subdued light of the main foyer, he asked about Miguel's health. Elena offered him a weary smile, nodding that her father was doing better. Nicholas exhaled relief, evident on his face. In the hush that followed, Nicholas quietly asked, Are you all right? Elena felt a surge of emotion. Tired from the hospital vigil, anxious about her exam results, yet profoundly grateful. Without warning, tears slipped down her cheeks. She apologized, but Nicholas gently touched her hand. In that moment, the subdued hush of the estate foyer, the flickering chandelier light, everything around them faded. Their eyes locked, and the weight of unspoken feelings swelled between them. Nicholas Carmichael. The formidable billionaire cleared his throat. Elena, I know you've been through so much. I only hope that what I've done has truly helped you, not made you feel indebted. She shook her head vehemently, explaining that gratitude was not the same as debt. Then, with a trembling voice, she confessed that she was frightened of everything that was happening, of the future, of the possibility that her feelings for him might be more than simple admiration. Nicholas took a step closer, gently lifting her chin, so she met his gaze. I'm frightened too, he whispered, but maybe we don't have to be. In that charged silence, he leaned in and pressed a soft kiss to her forehead. Elena closed her eyes, letting the warmth of that moment wash over her. It was a fragile, tender admission of deeper affection. Neither spoke of it directly, but in that instant, they both understood that their relationship had shifted from savior and beneficiary to something far more profound. The next weeks rushed by in a flurry. Eleanor received her exam results, a stellar performance that placed her among the top of her class. Ms. Hopkins congratulated her with a rare, genuine hug. The staff organized a small celebration in the estate's kitchens, replete with Spanish pastries and coffee. Nicholas, though traveling for a high-stakes real estate negotiation in Paris, sent a bouquet of roses with a note, "I never doubted you for a second." Amid this joy, an unexpected letter arrived at the estate addressed to Eleanor. It bore the official seal of a London law firm. Within were documents that stated a distant relative, one Eleanor had scarcely known, had passed away, leaving behind a small farmland property in Spain. Although modest, it was a piece of real estate that could be of significant sentimental value, potentially even worth enough to help her family further. Eleanor was stunned. It felt like fate was conspiring to lift her family from poverty at last. Unsure how to handle inheritance laws and property taxes in multiple countries, Elena turned to Nicholas for help. He immediately directed his legal team to handle the complexities and ensure her ownership was recognized. He told her that with careful planning, the farmland could become a stable source of income for her family, perhaps a small olive grove or a vineyard. This possibility electrified Elena, who realized she could provide for her family without solely depending on Nicholas's generosity. She felt an intense surge of independence blossoming. Yet even as hope soared, the shadow of Marissa once again loomed. She had uncovered details of this inheritance, tipping off tabloid journalists. Marissa spun a new narrative. Maid's sudden windfall. Is she using Nicholas Carmichael to secure her fortune? Sensational headlines re-emerged, casting Eleanor as a manipulative gold digger. Once again, the media churned with speculation, and paparazzi began staking out the estate, hoping for a photo of Elena. The intrusion reintroduced stress into their once quiet bubble. Enraged by Marissa's continued meddling, Nicholas decided it was time to confront her head-on. Through mutual contacts, he discovered she'd be attending a high-profile fashion launch in Milan. He flew there unannounced, determined to put an end to her schemes. Spotting her on the plush runway sidelines, he cornered her backstage among racks of glittering gowns. Marissa seemed startled, momentarily losing her socialite composure. Nicholas demanded an explanation for her continued attempts to sabotage Elena. Marissa feigned innocence, But with calm fury, Nicholas revealed that he had evidence linking her to the tabloid tips about Elena's inheritance. Stammering, Marissa tried to justify it as a petty revenge for him casting her aside. Nicholas responded that their relationship ended long ago, and that he would not tolerate any more defamation against Elena. If Marissa persisted, Nicholas would release documents proving her attempts at blackmail during their divorce documents that could ruin her socially and financially. Pale-faced Marissa realized she was cornered. Nicholas calmly told her, "This is your last warning. Don't ever target Elena or my family again." His voice carried the finality of a sealed fate. As he turned to leave, Marissa grabbed his arm one last time. "Is she really worth giving up? All we had?" she asked, a desperate tremor in her voice. Nicholas paused, meeting her gaze with unyielding resolve. "I never had anything with you," he said softly. "Not like this." Returning to London, Nicholas discovered that in his absence Elena had grown anxious about the constant paparazzi outside the estate. She felt guilty that her presence seemed to provoke scandal after scandal for him. Nicholas assured her that the confrontation with Marissa should finally put a halt to the madness. Time would tell if that was true. But for now they both felt an unspoken sense of relief. With Marissa effectively deterred, the media fervor began to die down. Paparazzi, failing to spot any sensational developments, gradually moved on. Elena's focus shifted back to her nursing studies and her father's steady recovery. Nicholas, his mega deal nearing completion, returned home more frequently, seeking the peace of his London estate and the calm presence of the woman who inspired him to believe in genuine connection again. One weekend, Nicholas and Elena traveled to Spain to inspect her inherited farmland. Nestled in the rolling hills near Seville, the property featured centuries-old olive trees and a rustic cottage. Walking among the gnarled trunks, Elena felt a surge of nostalgia, recalling childhood days spent harvesting olives with her grandparents. Nicholas, dressed in casual clothes for once, marveled at the serenity of the land. It was a stark contrast to his polished life of boardrooms and city skylines. Standing beneath a blazing sunset, Elena turned to Nicholas, gratitude shining in her eyes. She thanked him for making miracles happen, for seeing potential in her, and for standing by her side through countless storms. Nicholas quietly shook his head, insisting that she deserved every opportunity. He reminded her that she was the one who had done the hard work. She had saved her father, aced her exams, and adapted to a foreign land. He merely offered resources. She brought the determination. The conversation turned introspective. Nicholas spoke of his father's philanthropic beliefs and how he felt he was finally honoring them by supporting Elena's goals. Elena confessed that she sometimes felt overwhelmed, not by the challenges, but by how quickly her life had changed. "It's like I'm living someone else's dream," she mused. Nicholas took her hand gently. "Maybe it's our dream," he said. The evening breeze rustled the olive branches, carrying whispers of possibility across the dusty earth. Life rolled on in a subdued, harmonious rhythm. Elena advanced further in her nursing program, occasionally volunteering at local clinics to gain practical experience. Nicholas concluded negotiations in Asia, finalizing a landmark project that would bring sustainable housing to underprivileged communities, a new direction aligned with philanthropic goals. Inspired by Elena's passion for helping others, he had insisted on incorporating a charitable dimension into the venture, partnering with international NGOs. And then came a night that neither Elena nor Nicholas would ever forget. Nicholas organized a small celebration at the estate to honor the success of his new philanthropic venture. Attended by close friends, Some prominent philanthropists like Warren Buffett and a few members of Nicholas's team. The event felt relaxed and intimate. Eleanor wore a lavender dress, her heart fluttering with pride to see Nicholas championing humanitarian causes. After dinner, guests wandered the manicured grounds or lingered by the grand piano in the drawing room. Nicholas guided Elena outside to the rose garden, lit by soft lanterns. The floral aroma wafted around them. He reminisced about the first time he saw her crying, how that moment changed everything. With emotion thick in his voice, Nicholas confided that even though he'd once thought his heart was too scarred to love again, Eleanor had awakened a part of him that believed in hope and goodness. As her eyes brimmed with tears, Nicholas produced a small velvet box from his pocket. Opening it, revealed a delicate diamond ring. "Eleanor," he said, voice steady, but filled with awe. "You've given me a reason to believe in more than just business deals and wealth. Will you allow me the honor of standing by you forever? Overcome?" Elena nodded through tears, whispering, "Yes," as Nicholas slipped the ring onto her finger. In that moonlit garden, they sealed their commitment to each other, a testament to how one moment of compassion could reshape two lives, making the impossible suddenly real. In the weeks that followed their engagement, Nicholas and Elena navigated a swirl of planning. Though she was shy about the attention, Eleanor agreed to a small wedding with just family and close friends. Ms. Hopkins, uncharacteristically emotional, volunteered to help coordinate. Elena's parents, beaming with pride, offered their blessings. The estate staff bustled with excitement at the prospect of hosting a Carmichael wedding. Paparazzi inevitably caught wind, but Nicholas used his resources to keep the celebration as private as possible. On a breezy afternoon in late spring, Elena walked down a makeshift aisle in the estate gardens. Clad in a simple white gown trimmed with Spanish lace, she wore her hair partially pinned back, letting soft curls frame her face. Nicholas stood at the altar, waiting with an expression of pure adoration. Tears sparkled in the corners of his eyes as Elena reached his side. Under an arch adorned with fresh roses, they exchanged vows that promised support and understanding through life's every turn. Among the guests, some recognized the magnitude of the journey that had brought them there. A billionaire once isolated by power and mistrust, and a humble maid from Spain whose tears had sparked an extraordinary bond. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, the small crowd erupted in applause. Music drifted on the spring breeze, carrying hope for the future. In the aftermath of the ceremony, Nicholas and Eleanor found a quiet corner of the garden to reflect. Leaning against an ancient oak tree, they marveled at how fate had intervened in their lives. Elena's father stood nearby, alive and well. She was on the verge of graduating nursing school. Nicholas, for his part, rediscovered a deeper purpose beyond wealth. Hand in hand, they gazed toward the horizon, ready to face whatever challenges and joys lay ahead together. There you have it. The breathtaking journey of a billionaire who stopped to listen to one young woman's sobs in a hallway, triggering a chain of events that transformed both their lives. Through heartbreak, scandal, fierce loyalty, and unwavering compassion, Nicholas and Elena discovered that hope can bloom even in the unlikeliest of circumstances. Their story reminds us that we never truly know how a single moment of kindness can ripple outward, reshaping destinies and healing old wounds. If you found this tale of courage, love, and resilience inspiring to share it with those who might need a reminder that compassion still has the power to spark miracles. Like this video, subscribe to our channel for more incredible stories, and leave a comment to let us know which moment touched you most. Your engagement helps us bring more uplifting narratives to life. Thank you for being part of our journey.